Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great podcast. We're so excited that you come back each and every week and check out our podcast guests. And my goal is to find you different guests with different viewpoints so you really get to learn new strategies and techniques and ultimately take action for your life. And today is no different. I've got a great guest for you. Earl Cobb. He's an accomplished corporate executive, entrepreneur, and author. He is currently the founder and managing partner of Richer Life, LLC. Earl forged a successful and rewarding 34-year corporate career as a systems engineer, project program manager, and corporate and technology executive. He has held senior technical and leadership positions within Fortune 100, mid-market, and venture companies. Earl has been honored with numerous national awards for professional achievement, including the 1995 Black Engineer of the Year Award for professional achievement in the industry. He is the author of 11 published books. His first book on leadership development was released in November of 2011 and is titled Focused Leadership: What You Can Do Today to Become a More Effective Leader. His newest book, The Smart Leader and the Skinny Principles: How to Lead and Win with Any Organization, was released in October of 2019. He and his wife of 37 years, Dr. Charlotte Grant Cobb, have authored 4 books together. Earl is the father of 1 and grandfather of 3, with the oldest being a teenager. Earl is retired, but still finds enjoyment and challenge in what he wakes up and does every day, which includes being a part-time consultant, public speaker, radio talk show host, and CEO and publisher of some wonderful trade books. Earl, it is an honor and privilege to have you on the podcast, my friend.
Hi, Gary. No, the pleasure is all mine.
Well, thank you for saying yes. I know with the experience and knowledge that you have, we're going to have just a great conversation. We're going to talk some about leadership, which is one of my favorite topics. But before we go there, I love to ask every guest the same question. It's my mantra. Charge, and it's what the podcast is named after. Create habits around real goals every day. I'm curious, what habit or habits do you think has led success in your life?
Well, since I was a young man, spending the summers building go-karts, the habit was always to have a plan. Okay, having a plan lets you know where you are, where you've been, where you're going, and it just generates energy every day.
Yeah, I agree. And man, when you have that plan, then you're more likely to be able to go create it, where so many people live life just kind of by default. And instead, isn't life about living by design? And even as you're retired some now, you're still working because you love the passion of helping people, I'm sure, is part of the reason that you do that. So
Absolutely.
Let's look at that perspective of what you believe leadership is and why you think it's important. Kind of get us that baseline to get us started.
Sure. Of course, my mantra is that leadership is your advantage. And you can only understand that as you do understand from not only just the academic, but also from a professional point of view in terms of what leadership is. I mean, leadership is either you're being led or you're leading. So do you want to be in front or you want to be in the back? The idea of leading means that you've got an idea, you have a vision, you have a mission, you know how to communicate that, and you enjoy sharing and encouraging others to follow.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. As leaders, we have to really realize that we're setting that vision. We're setting that plan out in each time. But the one thing I think people forget about is we have to be able to communicate that leadership vision and goals. And I know you believe that's important for leaders to really understand how are they communicating that vision and goals. Why do you think that's so important, Earl?
Well, it's important, basically because no one can get in your head. I think it was Socrates who said, "We are what we think." Okay, so you got all this vision, all the idea of plan about how to get there, but if you can't share that, if you can't communicate that, and if you can't communicate that succinctly based on who you're sharing that message with.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think too often, though, leaders forget about that communication side. I do some training on the extended disc, which is all about communication. And then I work with companies about their culture. And of course, they have this kickoff event every year at the beginning of the year, and they tell people what the goals are or kind of where we're headed as an organization. And they think they've communicated because they've said it one time. And I think you and I both realize for a leader, it's how often are you saying that same message? Are you making it really, it's got to be as crystal clear to them as it is you. And
Absolutely.
I see that as become as one of the challenges. Do you see that? And have you seen that over the years where sometimes when you were being led by leaders, thinking that one time is enough, that really it's about an all the time type communication?
Absolutely. I've got a little story here if I can share it with you.
Sure, please.
When I finished undergraduate engineering school, I took on an opportunity to move to a company called Honeywell. That was back when Honeywell was in the mainframe computer business, okay? And it was a part of their advanced engineering program, right? So you just run, you go to grad school, you just deal, at a very high level with rotating assignments. And one of those 30 people that's on the program at any one time gets chosen to lead the program their final year, to keep the age thing and to be able to reach the college students for the recruits. And I did that. I was selected. And so I was the manager of AEP, and I was staying, down in HR. And, here I am 3 years out of college, right? Think I'm, really doing it. And who I was trying to impress was the director of engineering, right? So every day I look over at where his office is, and I pass by his office, and I make sure he see me. And when I see him in the hall, "Hi, Dick, how are you?" He'd say, "Hi," so I'm trying to impress the guy, right? Then all of a sudden I noticed that he seemed not to acknowledge me. He seemed not to see me in my mind, okay? And I just all of a sudden began to, get a little depressed, a little concerned. I wonder once I finished this rotation, am I going to have a place in engineering to go to? Later on, and I talk about that in my first book, Focused Leadership, found out that during that period that I thought Dick was ignoring me, he was going through a major corporate engineering restructure, other things on his mind, a lot of things happening, okay? So I learned from that is as a follower, you have to make sure that you spend the time to understand not only the leaders, what the leader's saying, communicating, but you also have to make sure you understand the perspective that the individual has at that time. And as a leader, you got to remember, like I always say, a whisper is a roar. People are listening, even if you're not saying anything, but what you're doing, how you're looking, where you're going, all of that's a part of people seeing you as a leader.
Yeah, and that perspective becomes so huge because we don't know what always the other person's going through. And when we're sitting on that other side, we've got to really realize it really becomes part of that piece that I believe as team members, we can do a better job, but we can do a better job as leaders is how do we listen and understand so critical that we can become that better leader for each of us. And I know you think about listening and understanding that is a critical component of becoming a really good leader.
Absolutely, absolutely, and listening is not a passive activity. I mean, listening is an active activity, and I don't mean active in a sense like most people, they're just waiting for you to stop so they can say what they've been thinking. As an active leader, you're developing a level of empathy, if you will. You're trying to really see what this person really means. someone can say, three different people can say the same thing to you in three different settings, and your reaction will be different because you're factoring in the individual. What do you know about that individual's past? The tone of the voice, the inquisitiveness, the message. All of that involves capturing such that what you share back is something that can be more focused on what the listener would really is looking to get from you as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to really take that into account, because listening, there's a reason, it goes back to the old saying, they gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and sometimes as leaders, that's one of our greatest roles, is being a great listener, because you can really start to understand your team and the people that you're working with if you're listening to them. And then I love your philosophy of with the understanding, because instead of what I want them to do or what I want them to think, instead of I'm understanding where they're coming from. And I'm sure you've seen that up through the ranks as you worked with different organizations and now with consulting and doing some coaching with individuals and training with them. That becomes a real component. And today, I'll be honest, I think, it's one of the greatest challenges in business, because we've got these mobile phones and we've got all these devices and all this technology. But the challenge is, you can't know someone always through an email or through a text message. And how can we get that same understanding with the individuals? What was some of your secrets that you used with the people that worked for you, Earl, of really trying to understand them?
Well, it really depends on the team. Back when I was managing projects a long time ago and project teams, being a project leader has a different focus than being a functional leader or being, a political leader. As a project leader, what I would always try to understand is the fact that I need to get to know each of my team members as individuals. Okay, not just as a function, not just as the manufacturing guy, the quality guy, or the marketing guy, but who is Bob? What is he really? Well, what motivates her? Those types of things. Now, as a functional leader, as you become more senior in the role and have larger organizations, you can't get as close to everyone. So then, what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that, I call them 2 downs. The people that are at least 2 down from you understand who you are, understand what you need, understand why you need it, understand where you're taking the organization, understand why that's important, such that they can communicate that down to everyone within the organization. And then as for example, when I ran Mid-Contract, which was the technology startup back in the late 90s, then you understand that your mission as a leader is to really home in on that vision, such that everyone can know what's the next step. How do we get the next round of funding? Why is that important? Who's interested in this technology? What are they looking for? Those types of things.
Yeah. And coming back, that got to really communicate that vision and message. And it's not a one-time thing as a leader. You've got to keep coming back to that each time of the importance of each one of those areas.
Yes.
One thing I think becomes real important is the most powerful relationship one can develop as a leader of any type. What do you think that is? What's that powerful relationship that someone needs to develop as a leader?
Without a doubt, it's trust. Okay. Trust is the most important relationship that you can have as a leader. Trust isn't about you. It's about the other person. Okay. Trust is something the other person gives you. I call it, as a leader, it's the currency.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
And you spend it every day. Okay. Trust is something that is very difficult to hang on to, because in a minute, in a comment, in an action, in a something you can lose that trust, and it's the most difficult thing to get back. So the idea of a leader starts with have I spent the time that's necessary to build trust in these relationships?
Yeah, trust is definitely one of those that there's definitely deposits and there's withdrawals. But if you have too many withdrawals, I mean, even in our own relationship, in marriage, you have too many withdrawals, there's going to become a trust problem within that relationship. And the workplace becomes no different in
Absolutely.
each one of those areas.
Yep.
When you look back at your career, what do you think helped you develop that trust? I mean, I know vision, sharing that message, communicating with your people all play into that. But is there some things that you look back on your career that, you were a very successful leader that you think really helped you gain that trust with your team?
I think probably the two things that really made a difference earlier in my career and allowed me to develop the skills and the insights that were needed, okay, was number one is I had a great mentor earlier when I was beginning to move up the senior roles within Motorola, and he would first of all, he would be very truthful. If you're doing good, you're doing good. If you're doing lousy, he'll tell you you're being lousy. To be able to understand that in order to get people to follow, in order for people to move to those levels that you like them to move to, that trust is really all about you being authentic. You opening up. You people can see who you really are. Okay. And then the second point, I think, is accepting people for who they are. People have strengths, people have weaknesses, people do things outside of work that's important. And there's just so many things. And I've learned this in a lot of my studies and a lot of my surveys is most managers who are leading a team are missing so many positive, energetic things that each team member could contribute because you've already pigeonholed that individual as being this or being that. Yet when they leave from work and not around you, it's amazing how Jill takes care of 5 children. She can multiplex. She has those skills. Why aren't I using those kinds of skills here with her job at work?
Yeah, I think that becomes real key. I knew we had something in common, Earl. You said you used to be with Motorola.
Yes.
Which area of Motorola was it with? Because I was in the wireless industry for 22 years.
Oh, really? Well, I started at Motorola Government Systems business in Scottsdale, Arizona in 1979.
Very interesting.
So I was on the technology end.
Yeah.
It was back when analog was king.
Yes.
And we owned the analog world. I used to go over to China in the Far East, and pages were called Motorola's.
Yep.
And Motorola University, and I mean those were the good days.
Yeah. Oh yes. So that brings back some memories there. We've seen some the old StarTAC that everybody thought was the king of things. It was nice and small. So that just brings back an interesting movie. Well, you make an interesting point because it's really about getting the best out of your people. And as a leader, that becomes a real key. And I think you really nailed it is too many people pigeonhole them into a certain segment and think, well, they can handle this, but this project they're not able to. Instead of how do you make your people better? Plus, I'm sure you've seen in your career is some people, leaders don't want to make their people better because they're afraid that then they'll be better than them and they'll get more opportunity. And I'm sure your philosophy is similar to mine. The better I make that leader, the more opportunity I have, because if I'm developing leaders, they can see that in me.
Right.
And some people just have that mentality of it's kind of that scarcity mindset of I don't want to make others better. So your philosophy over the years, I'm sure, was about making people better because I'm sure that's why you love talking about leadership today. So when you look at that, what do you think with that advantage that you have as you're working with your leaders and you keep making them, you help your people become better? What are some of those major advantages you as a leader get out of that?
Right. That's a very very good lead in because over the past 5 or 6 years, one of the emphasis, and one of my co-authors, we've written 2 books together, we've been focusing on is in the project world, where the focus is on PMPs and project managers. Okay. And what we've learned in our research and discussions is project managers are not necessarily project leaders. So we've been going through traveling, talking about this difference between managers and leaders. So the people that you talk about who don't want to make their others better, who want to just do the job themselves, who are just focused on the functional aspects of getting things done, which are important, the management tasks, controlling, ruling, those types of things. But that's not leadership, okay? And you wear both hats, okay? The leadership aspect is making 1 + 1 = more, okay? It's not managing. It's not making sure they're on time and making sure the report's in. And a lot of that has to do with communicating and understanding how to relate with people. Now, I give an example. You know, if I'm a manager and you come in and you tell me that you've got an issue at home and you need 3 days off, you know, as a manager, I probably say, okay, William, when do you think you're going to be back? As a leader, I go, oh, really, William? How are things? How's your wife? Really? Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you let me know when you're ready to come back, because it's important that you come back with the energy that the team needs from you. Totally different message that gives totally different results.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. As a leader is, you know, more about inspiring, helping people become better, where a manager's handling those tasks and those things. And I think one of the characteristics that leaders really need to have, and I think it's important at any time, but this day and age, it's really important, is that empathic leaders. You know, they have an advantage over other leaders, because basically empathic leaders have to understand that they're getting more to the root of what that is, and they're trying to find out what's the cause of that. So I'm kind of curious, is why do you think empathic leaders have an advantage over those that struggle with leading others?
Yeah, good. That's a very good question, because most people, not everyone, but most people, when they think of being empathetic, think that it's actually, being too involved. That it's not my responsibility to really to get that deep into your life or your thing or whatever else. But an amazing thing about empathy is that, and I share this message with my grandkids, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When you show empathy, when you show that attempt at least to walk in your shoes, people open up. You learn things about an individual that they never share with you. That information, those types of insights are so important in terms of building things like trust and building things like loyalty, okay? That's why people trust you. That's why people are loyal to you, because they really get a sense that at least when there's the opportunity, you spend the time and you show, that empathy. And the thing about empathy is that it's not a fixed thing. It can be learned. You can focus on some people are more empathetic than others. But the idea is, if you don't understand the value of empathy as a part of your leadership toolkit, you have less of an opportunity to be as successful as the other leader who does.
Yeah, I truly agree, because, until you truly understand the people that are working for you, and too many people think empathy is a weakness.
Yes.
It's a strength by and far. It doesn't mean you allow people to walk over you. You just understand where they're coming from. And if you're a good leader, if you've got that understanding, you're going to know what you need to do to communicate them to get what you need out of them to be able to get them to be a higher performer.
Yes.
It's really becomes, as you say, an advantage that's for them.
Absolutely.
Well, Earl, we could probably go on for several hours because you and I love leadership and we have some similar philosophies here. But before we go to the recharge round, I got one question. I'm going to leave it more open-ended, and you can go back to something that you've already shared. But I'm going to just say today, as you see society, because you've been around a little bit longer and things of that nature, and take that experience in. But if you were getting a brand new leader, and if they came to you and said, Earl, what is the secret of leadership? What would you tell them?
I would have to go back to what we discussed earlier, listening. Okay. Because the visioning part, the perspective of knowing the best route, the frontal lobe to be able to plan, all of that is about you, which is good. But to get someone to follow, it's got to be about them and how to get them to follow.
Well, I think you're right on. I agree wholeheartedly. Is if you're willing to listen, you can become and you will be a great leader, because then you're going to put the plans together, you're going to get the vision, and you're going to really have a team that wants to work for you. Yes. And that's really the key of a leader is how can I get their worth and potential so clearly that they can see it so clearly in themselves that they're willing now to share that with others. And that becomes a true leader, because too many leaders think of only themselves. And right. That is the problem that we have in the world. Yeah.
And not to prolong this, but if you put this in today's world of technology and the social media that technology has had, okay, the leadership within the marketing organizations, within those organizations, with all that data they're capturing, what they're doing is that they're doing just that. They're listening to you. They know what web page on Amazon you've been to. They know what you like. They know how many likes you like to get on a LinkedIn post. And that's listening. That's knowing you, and then good or bad, they end up putting that back at you, and you don't know why all of a sudden you ordered that or why you listened to that podcast. Yet they have gathered information in today's technological world that have gave them that insight. So they've been listening.
Yeah, what a great point. That's a great point. Now, we're going to jump into the recharge round. I love asking every guest the same thing. But before we do, Earl, why don't you give them your website, and also if you have anything that you want to share or a call to action to the group, go ahead and share that, and we'll come back to it at the end too. But go ahead and give them your website.
Sure. That website is Richer Life LLC, www.richer, R-S-C-H, Life, L-I-F-E, LLC.com. And that has all of the aspects of what we do contained within that website.
Excellent. So check out his website. I think you'll find some great information. I looked on it myself, and you've written lots of books and had some co-authors there, and lots of great information that he has available for you. Okay, Earl, I'm going to walk you through the recharge round and kind of thinking about that leadership in your life of how you want it. The first question for you is, how do you believe your mindset affects your daily living?
Because what we think is who we are. It's what we do. It's all about your mindset.
So remember that. Everything you're thinking, good brings out good, bad brings out bad. What do you think you do daily to bring energy in your life?
Prayer, exercise, and the excitement of just waking up every morning.
See, and you can see, you all can't see him. I can see Earl on the video here because we're on Zoom while we're recording this, and his energy eludes him. And I can just tell it. So I just want you to know, see how no matter what age, we all can exercise. That gives us energy that's there. But it's also that passion. You can tell he's sharing something, making an impact on people. So we can't thank him enough for that. How about the number one connection, or it could be a relationship that has made the biggest impact on your life?
My wife of almost 38 years, Dr. Charlotte Earl Cobb, without a doubt. She's the wind beneath my wings.
38 years. I'm at 25. So thank you very much for giving us something to look forward to there.
And we're going to try to catch my parents, who unfortunately aren't with us anymore, but they had 72, believe that.
72. I was at a funeral the other day, and the husband had passed away, and they were 68. And I told her when I went through the line, I said, you're an inspiration to us because, they have that many years, 72 and 68. That's a lot of years.
It's amazing. Yeah, it really is.
How about what advice has influenced you the most in your life?
Matthew 7:12. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
I can't add anything to that. That's a great one. Remember, check that out. We'll have that in show notes for you also. How about a book that you love? I know you love writing them, but how about one that you've read and share why you love it?
Well, no, I'm a reader of legal fiction. So of course I'm a Grisham fan.
Okay.
And I've read almost all the books that John Grisham and his team have written. And the reason I like it is because he gets you into the tort system so you can understand that. Okay. Now, based on that, of course, I've got to say right now, having come off 2 months of tour, that the best book is The Smart Leader and the Skinny Principles. And it's my latest book. And it took 15 years of reading Grisham to sort of get this right, to not just take you into leadership, but it's all about 10 narratives that you can read. It's suspenseful. It's about these people that are like you. They're in different kinds of organizations. And by reading them, like we were talking about empathy, you can walk in their shoes, to me. And now that's the best way in today's technology to get people who don't read very much to read one chapter and really get to know this person and that issue.
Well, I can't wait to check it out. I'm going to order one of them myself. So The Smart Leader, check it out. Earl's one of his latest books there. How about in one sentence or less, what legacy do you want to leave the world?
He was a good man, with good being meaning he was gracious and caring. He owned all of his responsibilities. He was an outstanding son, sibling, husband, and father. He died with no regrets.
Well, I can tell you just a little bit. We've got to know each other through this podcast. You are a good man, Earl Cobb, and you have impacted some lives today by sharing with us on the Charge podcast. I can't thank you enough.
Hey, again, it's a pleasure to be with you. Keep doing all those good things that you're doing. And to all your listeners, Gary's the guy.
Well, Earl, share with them again your website so they can check you out.
Yep, that's www.richyourlifellc.com. And also, as a gift, okay, if you send me an email, that's Earl, E-A-R-L, @richyourlifellc.com. Send me an email. Give me a short description of your current leadership challenge. I'll give you some free advice and send you a free copy of The Smart Leader.
Well, there you go. That was quite the offer there that he's making to you. We'll have all that in show notes because some people may be exercising right now. Some may be driving, so we don't want them to write it at this time. But we'll have all that information in show notes at chargepodcast.com. So you'll be able to access Richard's email and his website, all the information right there. So please check it out. Earl, again, thank you again for joining us on the Charge podcast. What a great day it's been.
Same here. Just continue to charge.
That's right. Chargers, now, if you're not charged up after today, I don't know. Something's wrong with you. We should have you ready to conquer the world. So I'm going to just leave you this thought. Go out there and take some action today and decide what it is and move forward in your life. That's what real leadership is. Make it a great day. We'll see you back here next week.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.